Hey, this is Michael Lindsay from ViolMX. I've got Jacob Hayes here with me, and we decided to do a little bit of a lap time challenge. We took 3 of the brand new 2023 Husqvarna models. We took an FC 250, FC 350, FC 450 out to Paris Raceway. I'd actually like to do another one of these down the road because we took Paris. It's, for anybody who hasn't been there before, it's a very man-made track. It's pretty small, very minor bit of elevation. It's slow to medium speed in a couple sections, so definitely maybe an advantage towards the smaller bikes to see if they could keep up with the 450 in these conditions. But we wanted to take 3 equally stocked bikes. All we did is set all the clickers at base setting, let them adjust the bars, and we set the sag to the same for all 3 bikes and did some lap times here with the old cross box so we could actually lay it all over afterwards and look at it. So before we actually get into what the lap times were, you know, sometimes there's a difference between what you feel and what reality is. So on the bike, running through them all, a couple sessions each, what is your thoughts on track? Like, what if I pulled you off and said, what are you better on? What do you feel more comfortable on? What's better where and why?
It's very rare that you get to ride a 250, a 350, a 450 all in the same day. So it was kind of unique to go out on the track in similar conditions and see which one was better and where they were better. If you had to ask me as soon as I came off what I was the worst on, I would say 450. And for some people that may be surprising, but I've ridden the new KTM 450 model and the new Husky model, and the power delivery is just insane. Like, good job to those guys for making a extremely powerful engine, but for me, it unsettles the chassis and makes the motorcycle a little bit harsh and a little bit hard to ride and manage throughout, especially a tight course such as Paris. So if you had to ask me which one that I didn't ride the best on, that would have been the 450. The 250 and the 350 were very similar to me. Obviously, you have that 350, that good lingering power where it just pulls and you're never really in a bad part of the power band. Never bounds up the chassis, never feels like you're having to override the motorcycle, but never feels like you're lugging it around. I kind of feel like I'm in that happy power band. And then the 250, I've been a 250 guy my entire career, so really enjoyed hopping on that thing. You can wring its guts out. But one thing I really wish I could have done, and me and you chatted about it, is just go up 1-2s. I feel like I was really in between second and third gear for me and where I ride the bike in the power band. So I wish I could have gone up 1-2s, but we all rode it in stock form. So it was very interesting to see the difference.
So I find what he says interesting is the 250, there's power there, but you want to manipulate where it is a little bit to get the best out of it. The 450, the power is plenty there, but I think it's interesting. A lot of guys are always like, oh, you know, I'm just, I run into guys at a track that still won't, even if they're not riding a lot or they're maybe not in the great shape, they're just convinced they need a 450 to go fast. I think it's really interesting to take an X-Pro, you're still in good shape, throw you on a 450. If it's not really dialed in, it's hard to utilize that power. Each of those bikes had a, you know, you could say a drawback. The 250, you need to move it around more. The 450 makes things hard to ride. And then we have that perfect in the middle 350, which we'll get into lap times. But so if I gave you we discussed why the 450 was difficult. If I gave you the 250 and the 350, how different would you think your lap times are between those two, just seat of the pants?
To just kind of go off of my general feel on how I felt on the motorcycle, how I was able to corner the bike, how I was able to get in and out of the corners and attack the track, I'm going to give myself probably about a second buffer on the 350 just because of how comfortable I felt on it, how I was able to get in and out of the corners and attack the jumps, to where the 250 really, on some of the tighter corners, you kind of were rolling it on and you're like, okay, let's go, to where I feel like if you would have gone that 1-2 up, it would have kind of got to the power band a little bit quicker. So I would give myself probably a second better on the 350.
So I know across all 3 bikes, you tried everything possible to take the same lines. Even though we're going through it quick, some lines just naturally change. Between those 3 bikes, did you feel a huge difference on what lines you could take and how accurate they were on each bike, or how well you could take them? Or is there things that stood out to you where you're like, man, I can hit this on this bike, but I cannot make it work on the other bike?
Definitely. The 350, I felt like I could place it anywhere. And that's not just because of the power and the confidence that I had in the bike that, hey, I can just roll it on and stick it here. Because you have to really carry momentum. It's still on the 350. It doesn't have that 450 bark to it. But the 350, I really could throw it in any rut or any scenario. And I felt like the way that the motor and the ergonomics of the chassis worked together, the bike was really playful, and you could kind of just throw it in third gear or throw it in second gear, whichever one you really felt comfortable with. And then the 450 was the exact opposite for me. I just feel like that thing has so much power to it. It carries so much inertia into the corner to when you start braking, like it unsettles and gets a little light in the rear and kind of has a dancing feel for me. And then the fork dives, but then when you sit down and you go to get on the gas, I just immediately kind of come back. It yanks out of my hands because it's a lot. It's a lot of power. And I rode it on the mellow map. I wasn't even on the aggressive map. I rode the aggressive map on the 350 and the 250. I never tried the mellow map on the 250 or the 350, but on the 450, I went straight for the mellow map and wished I could have geared it down maybe 2 teeth. You know what I mean? To try to smooth out that power curve, really make it to where I could roll it on. But yeah, like the 450 on some of the kind of wide sweepers, yes, I could stay in third and really play with the throttle. But if it was like a tight in and out corner and I had to shift down to second, I had to really think in my head, like, okay, you got to set this corner up, got to do your braking here, get seated here. But yeah, the 450 on some of the long sweepers, you could put it in third and really roll on the throttle. But the tight corners, you really had to set up and go, hey, I got to do my braking here. I've got to let off here. I've got to get seated here. And then really be patient on your throttle input, because that thing would really start hitting hard and try to jump out of your hands. But the 250 and 350 were very similar. The 450 was, it's good. It really is, and it has good characteristics. But for me on that tight track that day, same lines, every bike, it was the bike that I struggled the most with.
Like I said, that's actually a big part of why I kind of want to do this test again on a more open, like a GH track or something. But let's hit the lap times, and this definitely surprised me. So 450 and 250 were close. 250 was a 149.84. Your 250 time, your 250 time was a 149.84. Your 450 time was a 149.32.
Okay.
So right there, we did the playback on it. What'd you notice when we did the 250 to 450 playback?
So kind of like we just chatted about, in the tight sections where I could really get into the corner, set the corner up, carry my momentum on the 250, I was actually a little faster in the tight corners than on the 450 because you did the playback. But then we broke it down on the faster part of the track, was obviously able to open that 450 up, use the power to my advantage, and really kind of roll through those fast sections. But majority of the track was tight, technical, kind of like almost like an East Coast track. I would say Paris has done really well of kind of giving you a little bit of a variety of high speed but also tight technical stuff. So you were able to use your advantage on the 450, open it up, carry your momentum in the fast sections. But on the 250, I was able to get ahead in the tight sections.
And then the shocker, let me make sure I check this one right again. The 350, and I will say I think the 350 had a small advantage because we had probably 1 or 2 corners that kind of blew a little bit before you went out on the next 2, but it's still, even if you gave it a little bit of a handicap, it's pretty drastic. It is a 147.06, so
wow.
a little over 2 seconds. 2 seconds faster. Let's say even if we handicap the 2 corners, we think that we're a tick worse on the other bikes. You easily had a second to a second and a half on the 350. Again, when you think after seeing all the playbacks, what stands out to you on the 350? Why do you feel like you're that much quicker on it?
So like I said, just the way the motorcycle kind of works together with you. I feel like I could just throw that thing in the corner, sit down, get on the gas. I didn't really have to plan anything on that motorcycle. It was just a lot of seamless riding. Like I just felt like I could do whatever. I could throw it wherever, and I never felt like I was binding the bike up or bogging the bike down. I didn't feel like the gearing was off at all. I felt like it was honestly geared perfect for the power curve on that motorcycle. And just the way that I could maneuver that motorcycle in and out of the tight sections. I know the 350 has always been a really good motorcycle, but I've never spent a whole lot of time on one. But God, I would take that thing to a national. I mean, like, it was really surprising how well it was.
I think we were joking it would literally be the perfect Loretta's bike, because 450s are pretty pointless there.
Exactly. It's so tight, and the 350, you can just snap in and out of those corners. It still has that good power. Yeah, you are a little down on the very high-speed straightaways, but how often are we getting those things up in 4th and 5th and holding them wide open?
Even that, it was when we did the playback against the 250, it's interesting, is in the middle of the track where it's the tightest, where you could see it gain, where the 250 would gain on the 450. The 350 was just a tick better than the 250 in every tight section. It had, like I said, the lightness, the ability to throw it in the corner, so you'd see them go in evenly, but where the 350 has a little bit of extra power, but not so much of the 450, you were always driving out of the corner just a little bit better. So you're making a 10th here, 2 tenths there, 10th here, 10th there. But then the big advantage it has is you get to the 2 big open sections that the 450 had the advantage on, and the 350 is pretty close to the 450 in that output, and you see it yard the 250 in those 2 sections. But I would argue there was only, I think when we did the playback, there was one corner on the whole track, I think, where you had an advantage on the 250 over the 350. That really tight inside before the split rhythm lane. Other than that, better on the 450 or the 350 everywhere by just a little bit.
Which is not surprising to me because I felt that everywhere on the track. Like, that translated over. Like, when you come off and you're like, okay, what do you feel the best on? Okay, I feel the best on the 350 because A, I feel like I can maneuver it through the corners, and then B, it has that added power, like you just said.
So somebody comes up to you off the street, says, which of these 3 should I buy? You see a Joe Blow, like, I mean, the lap time's there, but comparatively thinking of your skill level, being able to get the best out of it, you were able to maximize it, but at the same time, would you say most of your weekend warrior, General Joe Blow, like, do you think they would possibly have a similar effect? Do you really think the bike is that well-rounded that most people with an out-of-the-box bike could get a better experience on it?
I would say 100%. If you're going to race your local weekend warrior tracks, or you're going to race, your local series, I would push a lot of people towards the 350. I know the 250 is fun, and I like to throw it around. It's light, but for your vet rider or your guy that's not really wanting to do a whole lot of motor work to a 250, that 350 is that perfect in the middle. And that's what I had the most fun on. So at the end of the day, if you are showing up to the track with a smile on your face and you're having fun, that's what matters.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Again, I think we're going to maybe try this again on a faster track. Go ahead and take out the little cross box and give it another shot. I'm curious, what other bikes would you guys like to see compared head-to-head? We're pretty much, in my opinion, I think these are really fun to do, so I'm kind of down for any 250 versus 450 or 2 different specific 450s. I know there's some guys are looking at very specific bike options. So again, if you have a thought, throw it in the comments section below. Give us a like and a subscribe, and keep tuned in for more bike tests.